Hey everybody, it's Michelle LaVore and
Devin LaVore coming at you
and
through the stress,
yes.
through the trial, through the tribulation, coming at you.
And yeah, let's get going. So I am really just excited to share with you guys some things that God has been showing us just about our journey and really bringing clarification to some of the, specifically one of the prophetic words that we received last year in May.
Can I set it up real quick?
Yeah.
May of 2017. This is the deal. You get a prophetic word from God, unless he's specifically saying now, you think it's for now because you're receiving the prophetic word now. And therefore you think, oh, this is what God's saying, this is what God's doing, yay! And then you realize later on, oh, that was a prophetic word for later, not now. Right?
Yeah.
So that's it. You know, tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and you tell them what you told them.
Yes.
That's public speaking 101 right there.
So, like Devin said, we received a word May of last year. And it was the picture of our family in the ark. And so we just right away were like, yes, because we felt that way. We felt like, oh, yeah, we feel like we're in an ark.
God took us apart and isolated us. And not in an unhealthy, isolated way, but in the way he isolated Noah and his family from everything going on outside. Yeah. It was just like, yeah, that is what's going on in our life. Whoa, awesome.
Yeah, and so we were just like, all right, we're in the ark. And this whole time we're like, all right, we're in the ark. We're in the ark. And, you know, it's like, okay, we've been in the ark for a really long time. Like, what's going on?
Way longer than Noah and his family were.
And so like a week ago or so, I felt like God just kind of gave me clarity as to what really was going on during that time when we got the vision. And so basically, like when we thought we were entering in the ark back last year in May, it really wasn't that. It was basically a time of building. And quite honestly, we actually ended up building the ark, I feel like, in 2017. And what I mean is that God has used this channel as really the boat, the way that he's carried us through this entire year that we've been here in Nashville. And I really felt like God was saying, like, when we arrived here, it was when God basically closed the door on our ark, and like that's where we've been this whole year. So, but it didn't start until we arrived in Nashville, whereas when we were in Kansas City, that whole time it was a building up of what God was doing. But another picture he had used the entire time we were there, and way more than he ever used the picture of the ark. I really think that just kind of came out really in that May time period. But God was speaking as, you know, hey, we were the picture of a tree in a cave. And then once we left, it was the tree was being carried. We got scooped up and carried by the Lord. And that's really also where we've been this whole time. It's like we've been carried by God. And it's through the ark. It's really through you guys as you continue to give and support our family. That's what God's been using as the vehicle, as the ark for us as we go through this time that God has allotted for us to be in the ark.
Yeah, because even, because I guess I was the one who got the vision. And then it was like, oh, that's where we are. I just assumed that's where we were. And see, that's the crazy thing, like I've been saying about prophetic words, is like you'll get the prophetic word and you get it in the moment and you think, oh, that's what God's doing in the moment. Unless the prophetic word is saying now, it's probably not now. Yeah. You know, unless you just get the sense that it's now or whatever. But it's like a lot of times we receive these things from the Lord and we don't realize that it's actually for a later point, and he's not telling us it's for a later point. Yeah. Because he's like, you know what, I can't be concerned with that right now. I got to focus on this. Yeah. And so he doesn't correct. But he's like, it'll all turn out fine. Yeah. You know? And so I think that can be the way a lot of prophetic things or just hearing from the Lord in general can be like that, particularly about things pertaining to the future. You know, because in June, I think, the Lord was, that tree in a cave thing, that was the vision the whole time. I mean, it was the vision the whole time. I mean, it was so many, and there's so much we could say about it. We've made tons of videos about it in our breakthrough story playlist, but it's like now, since we've been here, what's it all been?
It's all been the ark.
It's all been ark. And the thing of it is, he did scoop us up and take us, the tree, out of our land and then plant us. But we're kind of still in his hands right now.
Yeah, we
actually haven't been planted
yet.
But it's interesting how the tree then now becomes, what do you make an ark out of? Tree. Anyway. But it's like it's like his hands are the ark. You know, I don't know how to explain it. It's like we've transferred from this tree vision to the ark, but it's like, you know, in the real world, it's like it's just our family and what's happening, what God's doing with our family as he moves us, you know.
Yeah.
Like when we are a tree in his hands, we don't have any control over where we're going. There's no rudders on a tree. There's no wings or feathers on a tree. You know what I'm saying? And there's no rudder on the ark.
Yeah.
It's floating along wherever it's going to go. And it's like, that's kind of been our life.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, you know, when we first got here, we were expecting things to come to an end and something new to start and all that stuff. And it already had.
Yeah.
It was us beginning to go into the ark. And then God closed the door, and now we've been floating all this time. And it was just really, really interesting. So there are constantly things going on behind the scenes here. Constantly things popping up here and there. We got 4 kids. Okay, work with us. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, like it's been really interesting because our daughter recently got a vision, and there are like puzzle pieces to the vision that she got. It was really awesome. But within this vision, she saw these 7 snakes with 7 heads. And it was one of those things where it's like we could tell she wasn't trying to get attention. She was something like, I really feel like this is from the Lord. And the stuff that she wouldn't make up. Yeah. You know, anyway. And so we started getting revelation from the Lord about what there were 6 different elements, what they all meant. And I was like, oh, wow, this really is the Lord. That's awesome. And she saw this river of blood.
Yeah, that we talked about.
We talked about the river of mercy. But we've got revelation on everything except for the 7 snakes and the 7 heads. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, we've been anchored here in this room, this 44th place that we've been in. We've been anchored here. Our 7th week, or our 49th day, will be this Sunday, or you know, on the 11th, you know, or something. I'm like, all right, but I didn't feel like that was it. So the past 2 nights, I have been really kind of drawn in by the Lord. He's like, hey, are you going to ask me about that? Are you going to talk to me about that? And my heart's like, yes, I want to know. Like, man, like I am almost whining like a kid. Like, I want to know. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, you know. But I'm like, okay, Lord, really, I really desperately, earnestly want to know, what is the revelation? Please open it up to me. Yeah. Right? And I'm just sitting there and I'm just waiting. Because I just know this is not just my desire. This is also the Lord pulling on that desire that's in me, creating that kind of that fishing tension. You know what I mean? And then the Lord drew me in to this idea of revisiting the idea that you had, that it's like, well, maybe it represents like 49 weeks. Yeah. Because it made sense. And I was like, well, even the way you're interpreting that is biblical. You know, about the stalks and the 7 ears on the one stalk and all that. It's like, but there's 7 snakes with 7 heads. And I'm like, that's just weird. And so I was like, what if it's, and so we ended up coming up with 7 cycles of 7 weeks. Yeah. And it was just like, wow, that makes sense. Because that's what you felt last night, right?
I really felt, and honestly, it was kind of initially what I was thinking of, just that there are...
Oh, when you first heard it from her? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I got the 49 weeks.
That's right.
But it was just that there were basically 7-week segments, like, that have been, it's been broken up into basically like 7 weeks where God has been doing certain things within those 7 weeks. throughout this journey. And so there's basically the 7
It's almost
sets
like
of
7 seasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so it would equal 49 weeks. And so then last night we were like, all right, well, let's just, if this is what we're thinking, let's go through and just look back over.
Well, I got the idea.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I know we've had horrible track record when it comes to time frames and all that. So I didn't even consider it a time thing. I didn't. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to jump into this thing that we're always wrong about. I'm just going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the lead. If you're a detective, that's my lead. I really feel like I should go in that direction. So I did. So I started charting our journey. We got here December 18th at 8:44. Yes, I'm going to tell you again. But December 19th was our first full day here.
Yeah.
So I started from there. And I chopped our journey up in Nashville into 7-week increments. Oh my Lord. Holy cow. Now listen, when your soul is trying to figure it out, you're always going to be wrong. Mm-hmm. But when the Lord is leading you, He's leading you to a place of revelation.
Yeah.
And I think you need to take over, because I was doing all the calculating and figuring stuff out, like date-wise. But then as I'm doing that, you're getting all this revelation of like, oh, I remember that. That's when this was happening. And oh, I remember that. That's when this was happening. And it was all kind of related to almost the traveling of the ark.
Yeah.
That Noah and his family were on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow. So anyway.
Yeah. So basically,
It was amazing.
and this is, you know, like there were things that happened like right on like 7 weeks, but then there's sometimes where it was just like right
there was
around
a slight
that
overlap.
time,
Yeah.
you know, this is what was going on. And so I just really feel like, you know, it was just this, what was the message of what God was doing at certain time, those like 7-week segments of time.
And it was a clear separation.
Yeah.
It really was.
And so really like our first 7 weeks here, I really felt like God was kind of reminded me of the picture of, you know, when Noah and his family first enter the ark, and then the floodgates are open, not only of heaven, but the depths underneath the ground were bursting forth. You gotta, it was probably, the boat was probably shaking and it was turbulent. There was just, you know, the waves are coming up against the boat. You've got the rain coming down. And
it was very rocky and crazy.
That's really what it,
you know?
It was for us, those first, you know, 7 weeks. Quite honestly, like right around that 7-week mark, that's when I feel like for myself, God was transitioning me out of what I was going through, because I'm sure you can all go back to those videos back in January, and it was rough.
It
like
was it was the most difficult. That first 7 weeks was the most difficult for you.
Most difficult, yeah.
We lost our car.
Yeah.
In that 7 weeks.
Yeah. And just emotionally,
sad day.
There was just a lot of turbulence going on. We experienced
it wasn't
a lot
stolen. It was just, it broke down.
Yeah.
You know?
And we had a lot of sickness during that time.
We
I mean, that was the sickest.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, everybody got sick for Christmas time. We had like literally like a week's reprieve, and then everybody was sick, like other than you the second time.
The second time the Lord told me I wasn't going to get sick, and I was just like, well why is everyone else going to get sick? You ever ask the Lord that question? He's like, don't worry about that right now. We don't need to talk about that. I know you have a question, but just don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was during that time that he was like, this is, and I realize now why, because he was putting that word about vindication.
Yeah.
He was like, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then there's one girl who, I don't even know if she's even done a video since, came out with a video in that same like day about vindication from the Lord from Isaiah 35. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, this is awesome. Because see, when God is speaking the prophetic word, it doesn't matter when it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. And therein lies great hope and rejoicing. And just like, I don't care what I'm going through right now. This is what's going to happen. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And so then...
But the turbulence can kind of mess you up.
And so it was just kind of like, whoa, what is going on? Then the next set of 7 weeks, it really starts right around actually when the Super Bowl, we got that prophetic word about, you know, the Eagles and just all of those pictures. And And it really was a time where we were transitioned into this time frame of 7 weeks where it was a lot of building in our faith and encouragement from the Lord, but to just follow him. Because it was during that time we ended up going to Atlanta, we ended up going to Lawrenceburg, and we went up to Indiana. And literally, like, the day it ended, that next day we were back in Nashville.
Yes. I mean, like, to the day that 7 weeks was in.
Second 7 weeks.
That third set of sevens was just, it was all about the Spirit and moving in the Spirit and the kind of genuine believers you're going to meet and the kind of false believers you're going to deal with. Or the second seven. Yeah. That's the Indianapolis and Lawrenceburg. I mean, it was just like, it was crazy. And it was just like, it really was marked by supernatural intensity. Yeah. I mean, it was intense. And it ended with just a demonic manifestation like none of our family has experienced before or since. Yeah. And it was crazy. And God brought us through it, though. Yeah. I mean, we came out of it way stronger. To that day, it was just like we came out and we came back to Nashville, and it was almost like a
yeah, we're back
where
we're supposed to be.
And we were at a really, really nice Airbnb, and then from that moment on, God started doing something totally different.
Yeah, and that time, it was like a shifting from the Airbnbs. We started actually staying more in hotels at that time. Yeah. And just kind of transitioning, and I feel like really that time again was this God just building. He was building a lot more. Just let me pour into you with the words of what I'm going to do, what I'm preparing you for. And so that goes through until about halfway through May, and at that point we were just like, okay, well, I'm trying to remember like what really shifted, but there was a shift. I felt like it was during that time that we were actually staying in room 222, and it was in that moment that we felt for the first time we ended up staying in a place for a really long time.
Oh, that was 2 weeks.
And we had 2 weeks there.
We were 2 weeks in room 222 on floor 2.
Yeah, which was a very extended stay compared to what we had been used to.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was really, I was just like, all right, it really was a transitional point for us, because it was like, that was a time when God was like, all right, I'm starting to change things again. You're staying in places longer. And it was really needed, I think, at that point.
Yeah. Well, and something that's interesting to note, which you will have seen in our videos if you've been following us, is like that moment of excitement and transition. Oh, we're going into the promise. Oh, this is going to happen. It was always during those transitional times. Yeah. Because we felt the transition in the Spirit, and we assumed that it was, oh, yes, this is what God is saying. This is what's happening. And look at what God is saying. And the 222 and da-da-da-da. And oh, my gosh, this, that, and the other thing, and the prophetic stuff. And all of it was real. So many things were just like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be amazing. And again, we're not recognizing that these are prophetic things. Yeah. God's speaking about a time frame of the end. Well, this is what's going to happen in the end. And so when we have been feeling this transition during this 7 weeks of sevens, or 7, how should we say it? 7 phases of 7 weeks.
Cycles.
The 7 cycles. That's when we've been the most excited, and then it doesn't happen the way we thought, and then we are like,
and there's like that.
This is not what we thought it was gonna.
Yeah, and so.
But wait.
Yeah.
There's more.
So then really at that point, the 4th cycle of 7 started, and that was like an interesting time, because I think for us, God was really starting to focus a lot on the vision that He has for us. Because at that time, we got the word about the summer harvest, but we also were going through this time period of like, okay, maybe we are going to go be planted in a church, or we're going to be with the church. But God really showed us, hey, I'm showing you, yes, I led you to go, but I wanted you to see something that's actually not where I've called you to be.
Which was weird, because he didn't tell us that.
No.
It's like, no, I want you to go through this. You'll see.
Yeah,
you'll get it. You'll get it.
And so then nearing the end of that, we actually was when we, I really feel like at that point we were really liquid, and so God was like, "This is way too many
videos to reference."
Yeah, it's time for me to pour you into the mold, and the mold at that time was the corporation.
Yes,
and so we were
we had no idea
with the corporation, and that was nearing the end of that 7 weeks. And
now listen, the corporation contacted us.
Yeah.
And so we were like, hey, okay, what's up? What's going on? What? You want to do what?
Yeah.
You want to, excuse me?
Yeah.
Yes. Where do we sign?
Yeah. Well,
like,
and it
this
was,
is it.
And
this
well,
is the
and that was the thing. We really felt like too that God was, there was a lot of prayer that went into it, and it was just like, okay, this is the next steps that God's having us take, or having us to take. And so, but basically by like right around July is that 5th cycle. That 5th cycle, really, the entire thing was us being in the mold. And it was God really solidifying in our hearts, okay, yes, this is what the vision I have for you. Are you going to compromise that vision? Do you see what it is that I've given to you? And literally, like, it ends that was most of the summer, and God did so much this summer. It's more than just that, but it's like then end of August, like August 20th, would start the 6th cycle, and you can look on the videos. We talk about breaking the mold, and that literally was like August 19th. And
I was like, wow. Yeah. And we're always in our videos talking about the precision of God, but a lot of times you don't see it in your day-to-day life. You don't. I don't even think you can. That's why you need to trust the Lord. That's why, like, when we were going into our relationship with the corporation, and they were saying all kinds of stuff that they wanted to do, but we were like, okay, that's not really our vision, but okay, but if this is the pathway that God wants to take, all right, whatever. It's like Lana Vosser has been saying in some of her recent words, come with open-handed. Empty-handed and just open-hearted. Like, okay, because why? Now, why would we come into it with that kind of approach? Because we knew this was the Lord doing this.
Yeah.
This was the Lord pouring us in. We didn't realize that's what he was doing. He was pouring us in to a mold, and then eventually he was going to break off that relationship and confuse the language and all that Tower of Babel thing, and all that was just like, we had no idea.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is, had we known ahead of time, we would have said no, and then we wouldn't have been able to go through what God wanted us to go through, what he needed us to go through for us to get to the other side of that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't. So many other things. Do you think that Joseph would have volunteered for the life that he had to get where he needed to go? He would not have. No human being volunteers for that stuff.
Yeah.
No human being volunteers to go through what David went through for 14 years in the wilderness. No one volunteers for this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, we have a heart for God. We're just going to do whatever he wants, and we're going to trust him that he's just going to lead us through whatever we need to be led through, and all, that's what you have. You must live like that every day.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. And so
he'll take care of the details.
Yeah. So then I really feel like the 6th cycle that started at that point, at the very end of August, and went through basically the beginning of October, really was just that completely breaking away. God was just, he was doing so much in the spirit at that time. We went through the decompression, and it really was a very transitional time, and literally like October 8th ish is when, or 8th was when the 7th cycle began. And in that moment, it was really, we had gone through the decompression, and then the next week was really, God was speaking to us a lot about the garden. But that very next week, it was all about the love of God. We were talking about loving each other, and we did a whole bunch of stuff about the 5 love languages. And I really feel like in this cycle, and so right now we are still in the 7th cycle.
Yeah.
And so, but all of it has been cycles of testing. And so, but
true.
But as we kind of were looking into it, and I felt like when we first also got it, that, you know, it was seven snakes with 7 heads, and that would be 49. And I really felt like, wow, this is like a cycle of testing, and that it's kind of like, well, this is like a big cycle of testing, and what comes after 49 is 50. Well, 50 is significant because it means jubilee.
Okay, but before you go into that,
yeah,
can I talk about the 49 for a second?
Yes.
Because I was getting 949 like crazy, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, what is going on? And I knew 9 in the Hebrew culture was represented by a serpent.
Yeah.
And because it means like surrounding sometimes, and all that stuff, and I was like, what is going on? So it was like the 949 was like there's a completion of the 49, that perfect testing. And as we listen to this other video on YouTube, you know, if you want to, I don't always agree with everything that they talk about, but if you want to, you can look up the biblical meaning of such and such a number on YouTube, and I think his name is Peter Collins or something. They have some good solid information. Their videos are usually like an hour long though, but because they're usually live, and then they're podcasts and they're waiting for questions and whatnot. But I really felt like that's what the Lord was saying, was like it's a completion. It's like a super completion. It's like an ultimate completion. It's like there's no more, you know, testing after this. It's like, of course we're going to go through tests and trials and all that, but for this particular season of your life,
of what God's trying to do,
like, it's almost like college. You have freshman year, sophomore, all that, and then you graduate. You know, it's like, okay, and then you can go on to more education, but it's like for us, it was like there was going to be 7 cycles of 7 weeks, and then once that's complete, it's like it's done. You know?
And so that's
and
where...
then after that comes the 50.
The 50, which of course is Jubilee. And so we were really talking about kind of even last night, well, what do we expect after these 7, you know, this cycle is complete? And it was like, well, you know, if you look biblically and you look at what happens after people have been tested, it's like, well, we can look forward to joy. We can look forward to just God doing something great. And
prophetic words manifesting.
Because like with Jesus, he was in the wilderness. After he was tempted, he was ministered to by angels. That's been something that's been on my heart since last year, of just like I felt like there was going to be a ministering to of angels when we complete things. There was, you know, with Joseph, of course, he was promoted. You know, his time of testing was over, and that was also a significant thing. It's like, when this is over, it's done. You know, there's this kind of the idea of like, okay, that's been done and finished. Okay, so Jesus was in the wilderness 40 days and 40 nights. So on that, probably in that I'm just saying, I don't know that this is for sure, but it kind of matches up. So on that 41st day, what was going on? Well, he was being ministered to by angels. You know what I mean? So that there's that 41, right? It's in chapter 41, verse 41 actually, but chapter 41 is when we see the elevate of Genesis. My bad, thank you. Where we see Joseph being elevated, and we've been getting the 41 like crazy. Not only that, if you go back to the February sign that we got, it was the Super Bowl. You know, it was like 41 to 33. She was getting the 33, I was getting the 41. It was like, why are we getting these 2 separate numbers all the time? Boom. It was and it coincided with God saying, I'm going to give you a sign that I, the Holy Spirit, I'm going to come back with an olive leaf, an olive branch, and I'm going to show you like you are absolutely in the right place and on the right track. I know you're staying in some dude's house right now, you know what I mean, but it's like you are there, and that's what it was for us. So it's like that 41 was a sign. You know what I mean? The 41, because 33 means a sign. So, and 41 is like, that's what, so 41 for us has meant, you know, a separation
of things. You're going out of one thing into another thing. So the 41 has been coming up a lot for us lately, has it not? It has. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
Not only that, but the 29, you guys have no idea. The 29 has been, I mean, we were sitting there reading the Lana Wasser word, and we got to this certain part, we're like, wow, this is amazing. And then just out of the blue, this has never happened, ever. Out of the blue, this notification for my YouTube or for my Facebook page pops up and says, you have 29 new likes this week. And I was like, are you serious right now? I'm like, I mean, they were coming out like paparazzi, like I always say.
Yeah.
And we've been seeing that. Our last video was 29 minutes and 29 seconds.
Yeah.
And it was originally, when we filmed it, it was originally 41 minutes.
Yeah.
And 42 seconds. And I cut out all this other stuff that we didn't need to put in there. But I was like, wow, 41 and 29 are like, now 29 means departure.
Yeah.
And then we've been getting the 100, you know, we've been getting the 100 pretty consistently. And we talked about that already, about it being, all of these, 41 and 100 are saying, out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah.
The old is going away, the new is rising. And the 29 means departure, so it's like you're departing.
Yeah.
You're departing the wilderness, you're crossing the Jordan, you're going over to the other side. That kind of thing.
Yeah, which is what I was actually also going to say is like with the Israelites, when that time of testing was finished, the 40 years in the wilderness wandering around, well, what happened? Well, they entered into the promised land. And so it's like, all right, well, you can expect that when things are finished, that God is then moving into what I believe is like the promise. He's moving you into the promise. He's going to be, you know, whether it's you're ministered to by angels, there's going to be a shift. You're going to see a very distinct difference. And so it's like, all right.
Well, and he's been saying that to us this whole time.
Yeah.
Since we got here. That's why we've always had this expectation of like, this is getting ready to happen now. And it's like, well, no, I'm telling you things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not happening now. And it's like, okay, well, Lord, what are you saying today? And I think that's part of the training that we've gone through is learning how to say, okay, that's the vision. I hear what you're saying about all this stuff. This is great. But how do you want me to live today?
Yeah.
You know, give us this day our daily bread. What's going on today? What's the agenda? Not the agenda, but the schedule. You lead our lives and shepherd our lives today. And we will have hope and wait with patience and composure, one of my favorite scriptures now, on the promise to come, you know? Yeah. And so it's like when that's why it's difficult for me when I get words like I got, like a week ago or something, and not quite a week ago, where God's like saying, now comes. When I had that encounter with the Lord about Hannah and all that, and he's like, now comes and I'm just like, the long-awaited promise. I'm like, all right, we'll see. You know what I mean? And then Lana Wasser comes out with like 3-4 words that are basically confirming this, and then other people as well. And I'm just like, okay, you know, it's like, but I don't need it. I just need to hear what you're saying, Lord, and I'm just going to keep taking steps, step, you know? And so it's just been really interesting, you know. On the 26th will be the end of that 7th cycle of 7s, and it's like,
so we're definitely
what happens
like,
then?
All right, Lord. But the fact is, it's like, all right, we still have time. Like, we still have this time that it's like, all right, Lord, we realize like we're still in a time of testing, a time where it's like, all right, you're gonna be throwing things at us, or there's going to be things that come, and you know, how are we going to handle those things? And, you know, and I mean, it really is just kind of the goodness and kindness of the Lord to even reveal anything to us. And so
I was shocked. Was I not?
Yeah.
I was like, shocked. All right, and even the Lord was like, okay, I'm revealing to you a time frame. He's never done that. No. Ever. No. And it was just a sense of like, all right, I'm revealing this to you. You know, that's just kind of the sense I got from the Lord, like, are you going to go crazy on it? Are you going to freak out on it? Are you going to start assuming things? Are you going to go, whoa, and go flying off the cliff? You know what I'm saying? And it's like he gave me that picture to give me a sense of caution and warning of like,
it's like
hey,
anchor. We still have to be anchored to the Lord. And it's like, it's just like every day.
I can reveal this to you because, you know, you're so close to the end now, it's not going to matter. You know? But it's like we haven't broken the tape of the marathon yet. We haven't crossed the finish line. So it's like we just got to keep running.
Yep.
And we're excited. It's like, whoa, thank you for that Gatorade.
Yeah, and I think it was really cool, too. Last night I was reading a lot about just the temptations that Jesus went through. And I felt like God was just really showing me, it's like, you've been going through all of these this whole time. And you know, because Jesus, he was tempted, you know, Satan was like, hey, well, you know, you're hungry, so turn this like stone into bread.
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, no, I'm not going to do that. You're not going to, you know, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And I mean, that has been a constant this whole time.
Oh my gosh.
About just like, you know, what does it, you know, living by, you know,
basically living by your own ability.
Yeah, your own ability.
You do it yourself.
It's like, hey, well, you know, or even just the wisdom of man. Well, this is how you should, you know, you should do this. You should go do this. You should, you know, and it's like, no, we have to live. You should be making tents.
You should be trying to get a job, Devin. Maybe you should get Uber to supplement your income. Maybe you should, Devin, you should. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're saying. It might be a nice Job's friend thing you're saying there, but it's like you have no idea.
But it's like, you know? and so really in all of our lives, you have to live by the word of God.
Yeah.
And
not give in to that temptation
of, oh, okay, maybe, yeah, you know, I am needing this, so why don't I go and try and do it myself? And then another one of the temptations was that.
Well, can I speak on that a little more? Because that is a temptation. That has been a temptation for me the whole time.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times where I'm just like, oh man, I should have been still working on my books and my stuff this whole time. And you're like, boy, stop saying.
Yeah.
But I can feel in my spirit, God's going, no. I remember when we came back from, it was in 2017, we were still in Kansas City. We came back from the debacle that our original Brentwood trip was. And I was like, that's it. I have to just go get a job. It was a constant temptation even back then. And God was saying, no, don't do it. Don't. So when the Spirit of God is saying one thing, but your mind and your own understanding is saying another, there's a battle there.
Yeah.
And you have to bow down to one or the other.
Yeah.
And sometimes we lose. But I was like, even God saves you from your own losses, you know? But it's been a genuine temptation.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that's what the temptations were for Jesus. They were genuine temptations.
Yeah.
He was like, I really want to do that, you know? But he's like,
but I'm not going to.
I'm not going to.
And
so temptation number 2.
And the number 2, this was all from Matthew. And basically, the devil takes him up and is like, hey, you know, jump off this cliff and God will save you. And Jesus replies basically like, don't, no, it's the word says to not tempt the Lord your God and do not test him. And it comes from Deuteronomy 6:16. And so I went there and it referenced Exodus. It said to not test him like you did, and I forget the name of the place.
At the waters of Meribah.
Yeah, and so I read Exodus chapter 17, and it's about they were complaining against the Lord because they were thirsty. And so they were just basically accusing God of bringing them out to the wilderness to die. And it really was this like time, and God provided the water for them. But their hearts were just like, they were accusing God. They're saying, Lord, where are you? And for me personally, that has been the biggest testing.
It was like a prove yourself.
Yeah, prove yourself.
If you really are God, show yourself
to
be God, which is what that throw yourself down from here Jesus is, right?
Yeah. It's like prove that it, because basically he was saying like, if you are the Son of God, if God has actually, are you really the Son of God? Prove it. Is God really real? And I feel like for me, as far as like the Israelites, they really were complaining against the Lord. They were testing him. They were. It said that they were fault finding with God. And for me personally, that has been I would say the biggest one. Is like fault finding the Lord, getting to these places along this journey where it was just like, oh, I'm so angry at God, and I put him on trial of like, well, Lord, yeah, what about this? You said you were going to do this, and you said you're going to do that, and where are you? And it's like,
if this is really you,
yeah,
and you have really called us to do this, why is this so hard and so like miserable half the time, and we're always on the edge of financial ruin, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, why?
There's so many things.
Why
it's just
are we
like,
going through all of these heartbreaks over and over and
exactly.
over again?
And you're allowing us to believe stuff that's not true, and and of course it's like everything you just said is completely wrong.
Yeah, and so it really has been this process, and now though it's like I recognize like, okay, that is just, it's a temptation to find fault with the Lord, and it's like, no, I don't want to do that. You don't want to find fault with God. It's like, no, Lord, you are good, you are God. And then the last one was basically the devil takes Jesus and it's like, hey, if you bow down to me, I'll give you all of this. And in Luke it says like in a twinkling of an eye, he basically showed him everything. He's like, this has been given to me, this world has been given to me, I will give it to you if you bow down to me. And I feel like for us that it really was with the corporation, and it was like, hey, you can have all that you want. That's the promise. Whether or not it was actually going to happen, I don't know, but it was like, that is the promise. We will give you everything that you guys have been hoping and praying and dreaming for.
Jesus.
But you have to,
you change your vision.
You change your vision.
If you let us mold you into what we want, if you bow down.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
and it was just like, God was just, he's like, and we said no to that. And I really feel like for that, again, and it's about, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It could be minor things in your life. It's like, are you going to cut the vision? Are you going to change what it is that God has asked you to do, and who you are for the sake of gain?
So you can see how God will take you through something.
Yeah.
God will take you. This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Now let's go out into the wilderness where I can allow you to be tempted by the devil.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you just said you were pleased with me, bro. I should be going to the palace and getting like fanned and getting grapes fed to me. See, because that's really, I mean, it's funny, but that's really what the mindset God was coming against with you. This rosy, fantastic idea of what it means to be led by the Lord. And we can clearly see it right there in the Bible, undebatable. This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Now let me drive you out into the test of your life.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, Joseph, I really love this guy. Let me throw him in a pit.
Yeah.
and have him be in jail, unrighteously in jail, unjustly put in jail for 13 years.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, David, there's a man after my own heart. I love this guy. Let me send him into the wilderness. Sending him into the wilderness is not enough. Let me have his own father-in-law chase him and try to kill him. That's going to be awesome. You see what I'm saying? So, because a lot of times we have this idea that, oh, God wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
We have this Job's friend.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look at Job.
It's like, God wouldn't do that. He would. And he has. He's shown. But what is at the end?
Yeah.
The end is Joseph basically as Pharaoh.
Job
at the end, exactly,
was doubly blessed in his life.
Yeah.
And you have Jesus.
The word of God being fulfilled over a person's life who continued to come. Like Hannah, they just continued to go. Yep. They continued to believe. They continued. That's all it was. Ryan Lestrange just came out with that word yesterday, the anointing to continue. It's like you just got to continue to believe what God has put on your heart and put in your life. And then you will have moments like this where God has shown us this 7 cycles of 7 weeks. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's what you've been doing. And it's like, you know, I think about the times that I was watching Superbook and it was like, the Lord has declared that we are getting ready to go to the land of milk and honey. And it was just like, yes, this is awesome. Yay. And I was like, dude, that was like over 40 days ago. You know what I mean? We watched it again
Yeah,
exactly 40 days later. And it was like, it popped out at me again. I was like, oh, I remember this. And then I had that vision of the ark door cracking open. Another prophetic thing. And it's like, I've learned to not be afraid of these things anymore.
Yeah.
I've learned to just share them. I've learned to just, man, I'm really just honestly terrified to share this, but here goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With my family. And then you put it on a video out in YouTube world. That's a whole nother level.
Yeah. But it's just like, God he always just wants to share his heart. And so, I mean, I think for us personally, it's just been really awesome these last few days. And even just this last week, as God has really been showing, he's like, here, let me just bring more clarity and bring more of just, hey, this is how things can work in the spirit. It's like you can receive something, but it's like later on that's going to come into fulfillment. And I think with prophetic words in particular, a lot of times you get a prophetic word, but it's not until afterwards that you look back and it's like, oh, I see it.
It's like that's the Christmas in July thing. That's like a classic example for us now.
Yeah.
As far as me, I was thinking there was no Christmas in July, and you were like, wait, hold on a second. Let me give you a little itemization of what took place in July. And I'm like, oh, sackcloth and ashes, I repent. Yeah. That wasn't Christmas in July.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just, I don't know. And one other thing, which is kind of maybe a side note, and so, but I really felt like God kind of
because we never do side notes.
Tied it into what we were kind of talking about, was just like, I felt like God was just saying, like, through this whole time, there's been spiritual richness added to us. Yeah. And it really has been. There was with Isaac, it said that I think it was Isaac, he sowed in the land, and then in that same year he reaped 100-fold what he sowed. Yeah. And so for us personally, we've had that word since we first got here.
We got here. Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like, all right, we're gonna see like 100-fold. We're
and
thinking
the filling of the jars.
We're thinking like, all right, all of this. That's all of. We're thinking physical, tangible things. Yeah. And
because that was the now need.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you're thinking, oh, God's going to fulfill my now need. Good, sweet, that's great. Yeah. And then it doesn't happen. You're going, oh, man. Yeah. In fact, that was the time when our car broke down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like the exact opposite of physical needs.
Yeah. So, but I felt like God was just showing me, he's like, you have, like, all that you've been sowing, you're receiving 100-fold in the spirit of, like, all of these great. He showed me just like pictures of like just jewels and like in baskets, and it's like they're just full.
That's just spiritual though. That's just spiritual.
And that was really what God was showing.
That's just spiritual. That don't mean nothing. That's just spiritual.
And that's really what God was showing me last night. He was like, that has to go. Yeah. The idea that the spiritual things are worth less than the physical things. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, it really hit me. I'm just like, you know what, Lord, what you've given us in the spirit is truly, truly rich. And it's like, what's you can get a $2 million home, but be spiritually poor, empty and broken inside,
hollowed out.
And it's like,
what good is that going to do?
What good is that? Or you can be spiritually plentiful, and God doesn't,
and be living in a hotel room.
And it's like, I would trade that. I would trade having the spiritual wealth of God. Yeah. Any day. Yeah. Because it's eternal. Yeah. The things of this world are not, and I think that God.
It's not like we're going hungry.
No.
It's not like we're. I mean, times are almost always tight. But it's like we're not. It's like the Lord gave me this word before we even came out here. He's like, listen to that, because I was terrified, guys. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I really, really felt like this was the Lord. But I was like, this is going to take a serious, actual leap of faith. I am scared. Mm-hmm. I am genuinely scared that I am going to find out that I wasn't hearing from God, and I led my family into disaster. It was a real deal thing. And I was tormented by it. I was just, because, and I really felt like, this is what the Lord is wanting us to do. And I'm like, okay. And then the Lord said, listen, Devin, the waters of adversity will not touch you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. But I knew that word right there was the Lord. And sure enough, this whole time,
yeah,
we have not gone into any kind of family disaster or financial ruin or been like, without a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
It's never happened. Only by the hand of God and the blessings that God has used you guys to bless us with, honestly.
Yeah.
Our little boat here.
Yeah. So that's really what we have for you guys today. Again, it's just we're really in the final stage of the 7th cycle that
we had more to share, but our battery's dying.
Yeah. And so it's just, I don't know, it's just been really awesome to see just, we have been in the ark. We've gone through all of these cycles that God has been doing for us as far as testing.
Unknown to us.
But known to him. And
Ooh, that's an inside joke there.
But we just pray that you guys are even blessed by this video, and I just pray that God would just reveal to you, even in your life, how He's been working and moving, and that
He's been working, man.
See it more clearly.
Man, He's been working,
and
with the precision of a blueprint.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, again, if anybody would like to support us, there's the PayPal link below. And until next time, guys, we will see you later.
We love you guys. You guys are amazing.